Assalamu alaikum students. Today we are going to start our class on demography. This would be our first introductory class on demography and we would be discussing about demography and demographic cycle in this class. Before starting my class, let me give you a scenario. This is a picture of Beti Bachao Beti Padhao campaign that was started in India a few years back. Do you have any idea why I'm showing you this? And now we have another picture coming up that shows us the country-wise data of deaths due to corona pandemic of countries with 1000 plus cases. And it tells us that India has a low mortality rate as compared to Italy, UK, Belgium, France. But how are they related to our today's class? Is there any relationship between the two? Is it related to demography? By the end of this lecture, you would be able to understand how these two things were related to our lecture. Now, starting our today's lecture, what is demography? Demography has evolved from two Greek words. One is demos, that means people, and another is graphy, that means study. So, demography is simply study of people. But actually, demography involves scientific study or statistical study of human population. It involves study of human population with reference to their size, density, distribution. It also involves study of vital statistics like births and deaths in a population. The study of demography involves study of three basic phenomena. First one is changes in the human population. Size. By size, how do we see this? By size, I mean whether the population is growing, declining. We know about the size by recording the births and deaths, by recording the vital statistics in a population. And then we calculate the rates, crude birth rate, crude death rate. And then we plot them. And then we can compare them and see whether the population is increasing over time, whether the population is decreasing over time. The second that is involved in the study of demography is composition of a population. That means how the population of an area is composed. We study composition as per the age group or as per the occupation or even as per the gender. The third phenomena involved in the study of demography is study of population density, that is distribution of a population. We study how population is distributed in a particular area, whether it's sparsely populated area or it's densely populated area. The study of demography deals with 5 demographic processes. These are fertility, that is births, mortality, that is deaths, marriages, migration, movement of people from one area to another, and social mobility. And these 5 processes continuously work within the population and determine the three major phenomena, that is, size, composition, and distribution of a population in an area. Now, coming to why demography is important. As you know, community medicine is vitally concerned with population. But why, you would be thinking? Because we know that health of a population or health of a people depend upon the relationship between space they occupy, that is density, size of a population, that is number of people living in an area, and the social economic status of that population. This is very important. The social determinant of health, these are the basic determinants of health if we talk about the social determinants of health. And how do we occupy these all statistics? How do we get it? The main sources of demographic statistics in India is census. You may have heard about it, and this would be discussed in further lectures. National sample surveys, registrations of vital events like births and deaths, and even some demographic studies. They're important, they give us data about all these things. Now, coming to demographic cycle. What is a demographic cycle? Demographic cycle is simply evolution of a population over time, and this population may be of a region, of a country, or a defined geographical area, and it has five stages: a high stationary phase, early expanding stage, late expanding stage, low stationary stage, and a declining stage. We would be discussing these stages one by one in our further slides. Now, coming to first stage, that is the high stationary stage. This stage is characterized by high birth rates and a high death rate, which cancel each other and population remains stationary. That means more or less there is no growth in that population. And this was the scenario of India before 1920s. That means in India there were high birth rates and high death rates, and population was somewhat stationary, sorry. Then coming to the second stage, that is early expanding stage. The early expanding stage, in this stage, populations, what happens? Death rate declines, birth rate remains unchanged, so population starts increasing. And we have seen that this early expanding stage was as a result of improved health conditions and shortening of breastfeeding, because in some areas they used to breastfeed the child till 3 years of age and they used to wean him later, and due to that there were deaths in the population. So these interventions have led to this stage, and many countries in South Asia and Africa are in this phase. Then there is late expanding stage. This is the third stage. What happens in this stage? Death rates decline further. Even birth rate tends to fall, but it is still more than the death rate. So the population continues to increase in size. Presently, India, China, Singapore, they are in this phase. That's why the population of these countries is increasing. Now coming to the fourth stage, that is low stationary stage. In this stage, the birth rate declines further and death rates are already declined and they cancel each other and there is no population growth. We can see that in the first stage, it was also a stationary phase, but it was a high stationary phase. Why? Because the birth rate and the death rate were very high in that stage. There was no population growth in that stage also. But here, this stationary phase has been achieved because now birth rates and death rates have declined. That's why we have achieved a stable population now. And this phase we can see that many industrialized countries are in this stage, especially Denmark, Sweden, Belgium. Either they have very, very, very low growth rate of their population or not at all. Then comes the last stage. Last stage is the declining stage. And this is the fifth stage of the demographic cycle. What happens in this stage is that population begins to decline. Why? Because birth rate further declines and the death rates are somewhat same, but death rate is still more than the birth rate. So the overall population that starts to decline in this phase. And we see that Germany and Hungary are this time in a declining phase. That means their population is decreasing over a period of time. It's not increasing, not even stationary. It is in the fifth stage. Eventually the population, if no migration occurs or if birth rate is not increased, the entire population will die out over a period of time. This was the end of the class. I hope now you have understood what is demography and what is a demographic cycle and how these are interrelated to the pictures which I had shown you. The first one was the Beti Bachao campaign, which was started because of decline in the sex ratio, and second was the mortality rate, that means the death rates, which we were comparing among the countries. Thank you for listening.